So the things that you guys have to be, there are three triangles that you need to be able to find the different middles. There's different names for the middles of the triangles. Okay? So we have A, B, C. A, B, C. The first one that we studied was called the centroid. And to calculate the centroid, what you have to do is you're going to find the midpoint of two sides. And then you're going to connect the vertex to the midpoint. Vertex to the midpoint. And other vertex to the midpoint here. This point right here is called the centroid. Okay? And what is the centroid good for? It's basically where all of those lines meet. That's the median of the centroid. It's like the balance. If I were to put my finger there, that's kind of where it's a balance of the mass. So if I put my finger and I had a triangle at the centroid, that's kind of like it in the middle of the triangle. So that was the very first one that we do. So to determine that, the equations you need are midpoint. And you can determine the midpoint is just the average of this. Add up your x's, divide by 2. Add up your y's, divide by 2. And we also need to find the slope. The slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we need to use the equation to find out your b. Y is equal to mx plus b. These are all the equations that you need for your centroid. Right. Now, we have a other triangle. And this triangle is called the orthocenter. The orthocenter is where the altitudes meet. Let me just touch the screen to make it a little bit more clear. Is that better? So the orthocenter is where the altitudes. The altitude is basically the height. The heights of your triangle. Okay? So if this is A, this is B, this is C, this is one height right here. And I can find another height. For example, maybe this height right here. It has to hit this guy at 90 degrees though. Okay? Where those 2 points here hit here, that's called the orthocenter. That's where your altitudes meet. To determine the altitude, we do not need the midpoint. What we need to do is we need the slope equation, because you need to find the slope. So you can find the slope between AC. And then you need the perpendicular slope. Okay? Because this slope here is 90 degrees to this guy here. So the 90 degree slope, what you would do is the slope will be equal to -1 over slope. And that is the equation that you use to determine a slope that's 90 degrees. And that's called the perpendicular slope. Okay, so you need to use this equation here, determine the slope of this guy, and then to determine the perpendicular, use that. Then you have a point, you're going to use the vertex. You're going to use y is equal to mx plus b. The x and x comma y point is from the vertex. This slope here, you're going to use the perpendicular slope, and you need to find your equation. And then after you find your two equations, you find it where those two linear equations hit. Okay? So that was the second one. And then the third one, the last one that we studied was the circumcenter. Okay? This is called the circumcenter. And basically the circumcenter is, if I were to draw a circle around, it's going to be, you find the midpoints here, and then you just draw perpendicular. So it means perpendicular to this guy right here. That's going to be this guy, this 90 degrees. And then perpendicular to this guy is right here, 90 degrees. Perpendicular to this guy's 90 degrees here. It's kind of like the middle of the circle. Okay? It's kind of like the middle of this circle here. So this is your ABC. What do you need to calculate that? Well, we need midpoint. Okay? You need to have your midpoint. Then to determine this perpendicular slope is you need to know the slope. Okay, you can find the slope here. To find out this perpendicular slope, we have to use this equation right here. You need to find the perpendicular slope. Is you take your slope, and it's going to be equal to -1 over slope. Now I have the slope of this guy. Then you're going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. Oh, I'm almost off the screen here. And the point that you're going to use, the x and y point that you're going to use, is the midpoint. You're going to use the midpoint. Okay, so you have your x and your y. You're going to use this perpendicular slope, and then you solve for b, and then that will be the equation of this guy. And then you just need to find out where two of those lines hit. You find the point of intercept, and that's called the circumcenter. So they're all different middles of the triangle. This is kind of like the middle of a circle. It's if you drew a circle from all the vertexes of the circle, it'd be like the center of the circle. The centroid is kind of like the balance. If I put some weight and I were to balance it, that's the centroid. And then the orthocenter is basically the heights of your triangle, and that's where they meet there. So those are the three triangles that you need, the centers that you need to be able to calculate.